We alkalize to realize the body is the temple, water is the source of life. We breathe in life and then we synthesize. This liquid sun will free your glands and begin to decalcify. Peer through your third eye, see through the lies and give your body what it's missing. We dehydrated, and that's the human condition. But when you clean the body and believe the body, you set yourself up to receive the body. See, it's a sharp knife, that's the water of life. It's like a sword cutting parasites down the sides. It takes a certain kind of faith to know that you're divine. And if it comes from urethra, then it's alkaline. We serve in truth, and it don't matter how weird it really gets. It's the linchpin ascended masters to initiates. We alkalize to realize. Open your mind and find you had it inside this whole damn time. We alkalize to realize. Open your mind and find you had it inside this whole damn time. You had it inside this whole damn time.
All right, peace and love, family. This is the Alkalise to Realize talk show, and we got another very interesting character here. His name is Michael Feely, and I just want to read this off because this is really interesting. So, Michael Feely is an ancient code breaker, right? This brother here has authored about 8 different paperback books, numerous ebooks. And from what I'm reading here, and it's on different topics, hidden secret topics, ancient history. And he also is a public international conference speaker in both the UK and the US. Michael, you also appeared on Edge Media TV, The Moore Show, and you were featured on a documentary called Strawman, The Nature of the Cage, right? And another interesting fact about Michael is that he conducts tours of ancient sites and religious cathedrals in order to reveal their mysteries close up. So, and family, wait, he also has witnessed the paranormal and has witnessed even like interdimensional portals where, interdimensional beings, extraterrestrial, right? Michael, you've witnessed stuff, and this is fascinating. I have never really spoke one-to-one. You see the stories on YouTube and everything, but I've never spoken one-to-one with someone that has encountered these things. So, Michael, even looking at your biography, you always felt that you were different from such a young age. So you could, let's take it to the beginning of your story, right? Like what did you feel like that was so different? Like, did you have these intuitive abilities when you were young?
What felt different to me was the adult conversations that I would have with myself. And I remember even from the young age of 6 and 7, maybe slightly before, sitting there watching films such as The Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston, which is a famous sort of biblical film that's very old now. And I would sit there and watch it just out of pure fascination of, can these things really happen? Can an ocean be parted? Did this exodus really take place? Was there this person called Moses? Was there this character called Jesus? Can these things really happen? And this I feel is probably unusual for someone so young, 6 and 7, having these kind of conversations. And I always felt that Earth was backwards. I always felt, when you go on vacation and you all leave the airport in the same coach, and you're pulling up to the hotel, and you're sitting there thinking, I hope that isn't mine. And then, to your relief, a couple of passengers get off, and you find out that it's not your hotel, it's theirs. And that's how I felt about Earth. And it almost felt like I was dropped off at the wrong place. I always felt isolated, but happy in that solitude, happy in my own company, happy in my own bedroom, having these kind of thoughts. And I never really mixed well with the schooling system, the education system, because to me it always felt, well, what is the relevance of this? It always felt behind. It always felt we should be doing something more advanced. We should be doing something different than this. And of course, in later life, that is proven to be true. And these thoughts, can these things really happen? Are the scriptures true? And I've since found out that the scriptures really are merely a script that are covering something much deeper. So I'm now beginning to answer my own childhood questions. But I think what was different was the fact that someone of 6 years of age, analysing one of these most famous historical biblical films, and actually analysing it to the point of questioning the Red Sea, the parting, questioning the plagues, questioning these characters, questioning these stories at the age of 6. And that is really something, a real vivid childhood memory that I take back. And even though I don't remember anything happening as a child in terms of these kinds of experiences that I've subsequently experienced as an adult,
right,
I've certainly been told in channeled messages that from the very, very time that I came here, then basically I was destined to do this. So even though I can't remember anything, clearly there were plans for me now, and that was from literally the entry onto this planet. And that's really a most vivid of memory that I take from childhood.
Wow. And it's interesting because I also read, Mike, that you receive telepathic invites as well to certain locations before, correct? And is it in the form of is it a voice? Is it just kind of things just kind of worked its way to you, or was it like a direct message?
It happens in various ways, but the actual telepathic invite, it comes normally as an idea that I sense comes from the outside in. I can actually be sitting there and actually pinpoint the exact second, the exact moment or nano moment where information comes into my head, and I realise that it's come from another place. And this particular incident, for those who've ever watched the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, then they will realise that the cast were getting these images, these invites, that they were making this mountain out of mashed potatoes and different sort of household garbage and things. And what it turned out to be is there were several people being invited to a specific location at a certain time. They were selected to do that. Now, that has happened to me and my wife and 2 other friends who had the same inkling, had the same idea, that we needed to go to a certain location, which was 4 monolithic stones, about an hour's drive away. And we all had the idea that we needed to be there. So we all called each other and said, shall we go to this place this evening? And we all said, yeah, actually, I really feel like we need to go there. So all 4 of us went, but the previous evening, I kept getting images in my mind of, if you imagine, we had to walk for about 30 minutes up quite a steep hill. And when you get to the top of this steep hill, you can see for miles in every sort of cardinal direction. You can see for miles. And it was a dark night. And the previous evening, I kept getting shown as was on the hill by the monoliths, and I kept seeing orbs coming from every direction towards the center of the monoliths. And where there was 4 of us, and there were actually 4 standing stones. So we sort of got the feeling that we all had to stand individually on each of the stone, and then we all at the same time had a telepathic message that we needed to walk anti-clockwise, which is a positive portal, and we needed to move from one stone to the next, to the next, to the next, until we got back to the original stone that we're standing on. It's almost like an anti-clockwise baseball run out. And then when I look back at the photographs that have been taken that evening, it was the exact same replica of what I'd seen in my mind's eye the previous evening. Orbs coming from all different directions.
Wow.
And they're actually coming into the monoliths and going upwards. So it was sort of like the messages that I get come in different formats, but this particular one was a overwhelming sensation of needing to be there. And you could tell, as with all of these messages that come in different guises, it is just that overwhelming inkling that you must do something. But you realise that it's something that has come from outside of you.
Right. Wow. That's amazing, man. Interesting. And in these encounters, like for example, if you had that message to go to a specific location, it was said that you've seen an ET face to face, correct? And
yeah,
that in the, when you in the in between, or were you fully awake, or was it at your house? When did this encounter happen?
No, it was fully awake. I mean, normally when I'm in a sleep state, I normally get mathematical equations to work out, because there's a meaning inside the mathematical equations that I get.
Oh,
But on this particular occasion, it was the middle of the afternoon. I was actually at an event, and so we had the street. Then as you walk into the door, there was a small cafe, and then through another door into the main arena where this event was taking place. Now, I wasn't actually speaking this year. I was actually just there to observe. And all of a sudden, there was myself, my wife, and a friend. Now, there were other people in the cafe area. And all of a sudden, you could hear the door open and someone walked in. Now, just to describe this someone, they were about 6'3". Their eyes were black. The skin was stretched taut over their face, so you could actually see the contours of their skeletal skull. Their hair was down to their shoulders, but it felt very flimsy and brittle, as if you were to touch, it would just shatter. They were wearing like a sort of a dark suit, a long black coat, and as this person walked in, they were going, scanning the area, the cafe. Now, bearing in mind there's other people present in this cafe, that there was no unusual reaction. They looked and there was no unusual reaction. This whatever it was walked through into the event hall. Now, there's two ways out. The way he came in, which is where we were, or to go through a crowd of 50 or 60 spectators and go through a door that was through the hallway. Now, he didn't come back out the way that he came in. Now, when we asked people, did you see anything unusual? No one in the hall reported seeing anything unusual. Now, bear in mind that some of these entities have the ability to mask their true appearance. And it has been known that certain individuals at the right moment, when they hit the right frequency, can actually glimpse through the mask. Now, that has happened to me with this entity, and it's also happened to me and the wife in broad daylight when we've seen gigantic UFOs, cigar-shaped UFOs, 3 of them in the sky above us on a bright afternoon. Now, wow. They have this masking ability where they can sort of come in and out of our time. Now, our time is atomic, so atomic is material. Now, because we can only see the material realm and things that materialized in the material realm, they have this ability to drift in and out of this reality. Right. But they also have the ability to mask their true appearance. Now, I'd read many accounts of this, but then I actually witnessed it for myself just a few years ago.
Wow. I've heard about it myself, and wow, that's amazing. So this when you say that they can sift between timelines, right, from our timeline, is that the interdimensional travel, or did you they can because I see that you experience some level of time travel as well, Mr. Feely?
Yeah. What they're able to do within galaxies, within a third dimensional galaxy, there are what they call corridors. Now, if you imagine a high school and you have the classrooms, then you have outside the corridors. If you imagine the classrooms are three-dimensional time and space. Now, if you're in that classroom, people in that classroom, in that three-dimensional space, can see you. If you nip out of that classroom and walk down the corridor to the adjacent classroom, then the people in that 3D time and space can see you also. But the time that you spend in between the classrooms in this corridor, you are unseen by those people in the third-dimensional space and time. And what they're able to do is they're able to come into these corridors, which gives the appearance of blinking in and out. Now, when they blink out, they're in these three-dimensional corridors outside of space and time, outside of our sight, and they can come into this reality at a location and a time that they choose. Now, I've seen these things coming through wormholes in the sky where crafts have actually come out of dimensional portals, wormholes. That wormhole has then dissipated and the craft has continued across the sky and then disappeared itself. I've seen all kinds of things during the day, during the night, some of them 50 feet above me, some of them 500 feet above me, and this has been sort of day and night. So, I once asked why am I, at one point around about the year sort of 2009, which is when really I did experience, shall we say, quantum consciousness time travel, not physical time travel, but I almost like a conscious entanglement, a remote viewing time travel back in time. They have this ability to be able to do this, and I've seen these things, that they are amongst us. They've always been here, and they just have these abilities that we don't yet understand. I've had many of these experiences, and to ask why every single day, every single night, around about the year 2009, there wasn't a day that went by or a night that went by that I didn't witness something. And I asked. I live in the UK, and having asked why, I was specifically told that in order to have credibility, in order to teach people, in order to help people to understand, I must first of all have had to have experienced it personally.
Right.
And that is why. These days, of course, these downloads now have gone a lot from, even though I do still see things, I still see shadow people walking through walls and different things, but a lot of my experiences now are ancient secrets downloaded, and it's sort of gone from the form of observations and visitations and seeing things personally in the physical world to information that is given to me where I've been able to piece together what I term an ancient code, because little do people realize that within each of these monoliths, within each of these pyramids, within each of these great structures of the past, they were never individual projects. They were all a singular piece of a gigantic matrix and a jigsaw. And it's all the pieces together form the picture. So it was never that Stonehenge was individual. It's never the heads of Easter Island were individual projects. The pyramids of Egypt were not singular projects. The Mayan pyramids were not singular projects. They were all part of the same network. Now that network, when people need to go somewhere, when people need to find somewhere that they've never been before, certainly in the UK, we type in a zip code into our satellite navigation, our sat-nav. Now that sat-nav guides us to the exact location that we need to find. Now, when you start looking into some of the ancient secrets and you start realizing that all of these ancient monoliths of the past contain within their own longitude and latitude dimensions the exact location of how to find them. They've pinpointed themselves on the face of Earth through mathematics. In addition to that, they also pinpoint how to find other monoliths on Earth. So that the Great Pyramid of Egypt tells you how to find Stonehenge. Stonehenge tells you how to find the Great Pyramid. Stonehenge tells you how to find the Sidonian city on Mars. The face on Mars tells you exactly how to find Stonehenge on Earth. And you have this massive mathematical satellite navigation system where these monoliths are giving their exact precise location. Now, the only reason they're doing that is to be found.
It's to be found. Wow.
Because they are encoding in their longitude and latitude how to find them and how to find other monoliths that are situated on Earth.
Wow. And Mr. Felia, is these how it's all interconnected? Does it have anything to do with the calibration of the Earth's aura, or is it like what's it like? What's the purpose? With all of the monoliths and the connection of it. Is it like, can you, you know, just a question. What do you think the purpose is?
The, the purpose is to act as an energetic network. So
Okay.
the Great Pyramid is the epicenter of this gigantic network. Now, the Great Pyramid, when you actually start looking into it, we can say, you can say with some certainty that there's a possibility it's at least 500,000 years old because of the dating and how it corresponds to certain things on the Sidonian city on Mars, how the Sidonian city on Mars tells you how to find the Great Pyramid. So therefore, there's some correlation between the dating of the two. You can also say that during the last ice age on Earth, the Great Pyramid was in situ then, because the North Pole was over certain regions of Canada. Now, there was a 19.5 degree effect where all the major super pyramids of the Earth fall at a 19.5 degree location. Now, 12,000 years ago in the last ice age, that 19.5 degree effect went straight through the Great Pyramid. So it was there at least at the last ice age. So you can blast out of the water the mainstream view that the pyramids are sort of up to 5,000 years old. They're not. When you start looking into religious scripture, when you start looking into Gnosticism, when you start looking into the Egyptian culture, when you start looking into the Mayans, when you start looking into the Sumerians, the Babylonians, when you look at all of these, now when I started looking into them, when I started researching them, I researched them as individual civilizations. And what I discovered, that whichever civilization I looked into, the same numbers, the same meanings, the same metaphors, the same codes, the same symbols were being replicated throughout the world. Now that told me that they were all saying the same thing. Now, when you look into it even deeper, you'll see that the ancients have left a message of how to become a higher type of human through genetic transmutation. And that is really when you then go into the sound chambers of the pyramid where they were elongating skulls. And a lot of this was done during the gestational natal period of a child in its mom's womb. When you see the elongated skulls have been found in Malta, in Peru, at Stonehenge, in Egypt, in Russia, they've been found all over the world, and it's all to do with the transmutation of DNA and sonic resonance. And when you look into even deeper, you'll see that every single ancient monolith is telling you about enlightened consciousness, a spiritual consciousness, and everything is all connected to that. Now, the Great Pyramid I have found, and I've actually drawn a map overlay of the human head over the Great Pyramid. Now, when you do that, you will see that they have actually marked the endocrine system of human consciousness. Now, the endocrine system, endocrine means secretion within. Now, there are three parts of the endocrine system of human consciousness, which is the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, and you have the thalamus, which is Isis, Osiris, and Horus. When you see where the king's chamber is located, when you put this map overlay, you'll see it's in the exact location of the pineal gland. When you see where the queen's chamber has been situated, it is in the exact location of the pituitary gland. You will see inside there's like a little tower inside the Great Pyramid. That little tower is the Shinto, which is Japan and China's replica. Shinto means pathway to the gods. It is talking about your inner illumination, your inner consciousness. Now, a lot of Egyptian scholars and Egyptologists are scratching their head even still as to what the subterranean chambers of the Great Pyramid mean. What they mean, and what I found they mean, they replicate the subconscious mind. So you have the subconscious mind, which is the subterranean chambers, and you have the conscious mind, the endocrine system, which is above the subconscious. And everything is really a giant replica of the human brain, of the human mind, and the how to awaken that inner godlike potential and how to get there. So going back to when I used to watch Moses and the parting of the Red Sea, what I found that actually means, that was a metaphor in Gnosticism. When you go from your captivity, which in the Kabbalah is klipoth, which is basically your lower chakras, your abyss, which is situated below the pelvis, your lower chakras. That is your captivity. Now, when you follow your Moses, when you follow your thelema, which is your spiritual will, your spiritual desire, you take the path of least resistance to your Godhead. That path of least resistance in Gnosticism is known as the open sea. That is the parting of the Red Sea of Moses. So your Moses takes you for the path of least resistance up the highway, which is the spine, which is Jacob's ladder, to your Golgotha, your place of skulls, where your mind, where you are enlightened. That takes the path of least resistance. That is your Moses. And that is the freeing of your Egyptians, your lower self, to go to Israel, which is the promised land. Now, Israel, promised land, is really a metaphor for a Christ consciousness state. And you take that path of least resistance through the open sea. So whichever culture I've gone into, whether it's the Bible, whether it's the Quran, whether it's all these different, the Talmud, the Torah, the Egyptians, the Mayans, the Babylonians, the Sumerians, every single culture is telling you how to achieve a higher state of human consciousness. But they've written it in stone. They've written it in religious scripture. And that is really what they're telling you. And everyone is telling you the same thing.
Same thing. And sexual alchemy as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is your awaken your sleeping dragon, the sexual alchemy, your fire, your Christos, your Christ.
Wow. And Mr. Feely, this confirms so much. Like, this is amazing. I really love this interaction. Now with sexual alchemy, is it through celibacy, or can you get there through tantric sex, or is celibacy kind of the highest order when it comes to constructing the higher human, or to reconstructing ourselves to reflect that higher consciousness?
When you look into, let's analyze the word priest. Now, priest comes from the word magush. Now, magush gives us magi, which is magician, which is an alchemist. So the early priests were magicians and they were alchemists. Now, alchemy is the chemistry of God. Al, God, chem, as in Egypt. The original name of Egypt is chem. Alchemy, the chemistry of God. Now, when you start looking at the wisdom stone, the philosopher's stone, the gold of enlightenment, there are certain things that get you there. Now, the priesthoods have misunderstood the origin of celibacy, and as a result of that, it's sort of manifesting in criminal activity and sexual assaults and sexual crime. But what the Gnostics and the Kabbalah and all of these ancient alchemists tell you, what they keep secret, is it's the retention of the sacred energy. It is the upward ejaculation instead of the outward ejaculation. Now, when the sacrum pushes your cerebrospinal fluid through the body to the brain and back. Now, that takes 12 hours. But what that does is when that upward thrust of that cerebrospinal fluid, which is salt, salvation, your salvation, then it thrusts upwards. It awakens that sleeping dragon, and it awakens those chakras. Right. Now, when you start looking at the word savior basically means he who sows the seed. That seed is sperm, because sperm means seed. Now, we are our own salvation. We are our own savior. Right. Now this goes up and it creates a gamma rays. This upward thrust of cerebrospinal fluid creates gamma rays. Now, gamma rays are important because they usually vibrate at 40 hertz, which is a super consciousness hertage. Now, the number 40 is used quite often in the Bible. 40 years in the wilderness, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. It's telling you about the sacredness of the number 40, which is the gamma ray of super consciousness. Now, the cerebrospinal fluid that is thrust upwards creates these gamma rays of super consciousness. It creates a torus of electromagnetic energy around the body that resembles an apple. That is the apple of Eden, because the body is Eden. Eden means life. It is the body. It is the human body where we experience. Now, Adam is earth. Eve means life. How do we experience life on earth? in a physical body. That is the Garden of Eden, that is the paradise. So they worked out that this sexual alchemy is basically how you can transmute through the union of sexual opposites, through the retention of this sacred energy, how that can lift your sleeping dragon, how that can really awaken you. Now, if you use this sexual energy for passion, for lust, that is satanic consciousness. And the reason it's satanic consciousness is because this kundalini, this serpent, which is incidentally are physically seen, this white chemical fire that resembles a faceless serpent, when it travels up the chakra system, and your Christ has cleansed the 7 unclean spirits, which are the 7 chakras, if it goes all the way through passion, through celibacy, through the correct use of sexual alchemy, it is your Christ, it is your carpenter, it is the Nanja, it is the serpent of wisdom. It goes unimpeded up to Golgotha, the place of skulls. If it meets any kind of negativity, any kind of ego, any kind of lustful, passionate sexual activity, that serpent descends. Now, when you start looking in Gnostic terms, your upper chakras are the kingdom of heaven. Your lower chakras, your earthly desires, your sacral, your lower desires are the kingdom of earth. So when this serpent descends downwards, that is Satan falling from heaven to earth.
Right.
That is your sexual, that is your sexual energy that is in descent because of your earthly activities. So when we see Hollywood, when we see all the pop culture, and they're bringing in lust, and they're reducing the age of consent, and they're bringing in all this sexual innuendo, that is really the satanic consciousness that rules the world, because it is the passion, it is the spasm of the animal, which is the orgasm, which is the lustful orgasm.
Yeah.
So if you use it correctly, that is the passion, that is the compassion of Christ. It is your rising serpent, and then you will reach the three crosses of Calgary, which are the 2 physical eyes and your third eye. So it's all really written in metaphors, in codes, in symbols. And the reason it's all written in codes and symbols and metaphors is because it then confuses the uninitiated, because only the people who have been taught to interpret the symbols and codes correctly will actually get the true meaning of what it really means. So when you look at Satan, when you look at Lucifer, people tell you it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. Lucifer is the lux ferri. It is the ferry of light, the light carrier. That is really the phosphorus firing inside the blood. It is the blood alchemy. That is Lucifer. That is the sexual force. That is the fire inside. That is your morning star. Satan is really the descending serpent of the spasm of the animal, lustful, carnal desire. So
with the Kunda buffer as well, is that another name?
Yeah, well, the Kunda buffer. I mean, we in the UK we have this. We get a coin, and we basically make decisions, and we say heads or tails on an English coin. One side of the coin is tails. One side of the coin is heads. Heads or tails. Esoterically, that means the head, enlightenment, or the tail, the Kunda buffer, which is the descending serpent. Heads or tails, enlightenment, or the descent of the serpent. And the people who play this game haven't got a clue what they're doing.
Right, and I like how you say you play this game. So, I got so much questions. It's amazing. So we have now the whole story with the Anunnaki. Right now, who were in your understanding of ancient history? Who were our ancient progenitors, Mr. Feely?
Scientists are now beginning to prove, not your Western mainstream scientists, but scientists in the Eastern Bloc and different parts of the world, that human DNA does not come from Earth. It was programmed outside of Earth, and through panspermia, the universe has been seeded by a consciousness seed, and various life forms, various genetic life forms, have ended up gravitating towards certain star systems. It's also been proven scientifically that the human physical body is from Orion, the Orion Nebula, because when a star explodes and dies in the Orion Nebula, It creates the carbon and the oxygen that creates physical life on Earth. So when you put that together, when you say human DNA is not from Earth and the human physical body is not from Earth, we are not from here. We ended up here. Now, a lot of these ancient sites were here before humans. So in many cases, humans are the aliens because there were races here before we were. Because they put these sacred sites there. That is the reason that the likes of the Egyptians never documented building the pyramids, because they didn't. They were there. And certain individuals were taught how to use them. And this is the high priests, the pharaohs. I mean, the high priests were really the ones in charge, not the pharaohs, the high priests. And they would take the pharaohs to initiations. Now, just to put a little bit of a spin on that, when you look at the likes of the red carpet at the Oscar ceremony, that is symbolic of a genetic knowledge, because they know that knowledge gets conveyed from ancestral DNA, which is your X chromosomes. Your X chromosomes is the famous Planet X of the Anunnaki story. That is your ancestral knowledge that goes down your blood, your genetics, from generation to generation. Now, the reason that royalty and Egyptian royalty and modern day royalty, despite what the mainstream news tell you about members of the British royal family marrying into commoners, they're all interrelated. And the reason they're all interrelated is because they understand that they want to keep this sacred genetic secret knowledge within their own bloodline, and that is the red carpet of the Oscar ceremonies and so on. It is that royal bloodline of the ancestral knowledge that they wish to keep to their own kinship. Now, just to put a little bit of a spin on that, there are certain philosophers and different things that will say, Plato, for argument's sake, tells you that knowledge and education is a past memory, which he equates to deja vu and different things. Now, the importance in that is, if you are part of this ancestral knowledge line, you will have ancient recognition of ancient codes and ancient symbols, which I do. To put another spin on that, my ancestors were Irish Celtic kings, and my particular bloodline, the Celtic kings that are part of my bloodline, were related to Ramesses II of Egypt, the Pharaoh of Egypt. So my bloodline, when you trace it back, is royal and pharaonic. And this, when I see sort of logos, when I see codes, when I see symbols, there is an innate recognition of what they mean. And this is because it's in my DNA. It is that ancestral line that has come through my X chromosomes into my modern day knowledge base. It's my Planet X, and that is really what it's talking about.
Wow. So, Mr. Feely, and you brought up the Anunnaki. Like, I know that David Icke, and there's people that talk about, because I know about the elites, doing incest, but to keep it genetically pure, because they don't want it to get watered down. Now, what is not the mainstream Anunnaki with Zachariah Stitchin, but what is your understanding? Like, is it true that they re-engineered a human species here? In your research?
Yeah. If you look at the Anunnaki story as a singular story, then you can see it at face value. But when you've looked at every single ancient culture like I have, and you start seeing the same traits in the Anunnaki story that all the other stories are telling you, then it sort of warrants a deeper research. Now, there are these ET races, there are reptilian races, there are races that are able to enter human vessels. Now, I've seen human mediums through transfiguration where entities have come into them, and I've seen their face shift, and I've seen things that prove to me that these entities can come in and they can manipulate and they can control and they can, I've had my own sort of personal weird experiences face to face with the Queen of England. They are vessels for these things coming in. Now, the Anunnaki, when you start analysing the story and you start pick away at some of the things that are said and you can prove them not to be true, then you can start looking at the whole story as a metaphor. Now, when you start looking at the Anunnaki and you start looking at it piece by piece, I've already mentioned about Planet X, which is genetic. When you start looking at the meaning of the names of the Anunnaki gods, so the main chief god is Anu. Now, Anu in Sanskrit, which is one of the earliest earthly languages, means atom. So straight away, we're going back to genetics. Now, when you start looking at mainstream science, tells us that Crick and Watson discovered the double helix of DNA in 1953. The Anunnaki, whoever wrote the Anunnaki Sumerian scrolls, knew about the double helix of DNA thousands of years ago, simply because the Enki and Enlil, the Shettai, the Snake brothers, is referred into the double helix system of DNA. It is the positive and negative serpent, and that is Enki and Enlil. Now, when you look at the face on Mars, which the story tells you is really a commemorative statue to Alalu. Alalu means wave genetics. Every single character of the Anunnaki means genetics in some form. Now, when you couple that to Planet X, which is your X chromosome, you start to realize, excuse me, that the whole of the story is talking about a genetic, basically a higher type of human through genetics. And when you start seeing the mysterious solar systems at the back of these giants, people think it's planets because there are 11 orbs around what they believe to be the sun. It's not. It is the 11 hexagram of atomic DNA. And with inside the DNA, the 11 hexagram, it comes from Quian and Kun, which means heaven and earth. Those who from heaven to earth came. It's talking about ourselves.
Right.
And we inherited the earth from elsewhere. So I found that the whole of the Anunnaki story, again, is a metaphor to how to transmute DNA and how to become a higher type of human. And it's the same when you see the giants and the small people of the Anunnaki. That is really telling you about your God self, your higher self. A giant is a metaphor for a higher than average insight. It's talking about supernatural wisdom. And it's the same scenario with the gods of Olympus in Greece, because that is telling you of your godlike self, your higher potential. So I found that it goes a lot deeper. There's a lot more facets to the story, but in a very condensed sort of nutshell, it's telling you about the higher type of human and our genetic potential. So really, when you look at Adamu and Tiamat, Tiamat means the primordial waters of creation. It's genetic. Adam is earth, it's life on earth. It's the Adam and Eve story all over again. Eridu is Eden, it's the body. Now, why did they live at the east of Eden? Because the east of Eden is the right brain. They are living in the right brain. They are living with that connection. So the whole of the story, again, what is the biblical Eden is the Anunnaki Eridu. The biblical Adam and Eve is Adamu and Tiamat. When you start looking again, the electromagnetic torus based on mathematics, which is the apple of Eden. When you start looking at the Apple Corporation, the logo with the bite out of the apple, well, that is really telling you about a disruption in that circuit, because it's that electromagnetic circuit that is the conveyor of the perception of consciousness around the body through the neural system. So when we disrupt that circuit, when we take a bite out of the apple, we are disrupting that consciousness circuit. When you start looking at the book of Genesis is really the book of genetics, the book of genes. And they were telling you about genetics and superior genetics even then. So when the same codes, the same metaphors, the same symbols, the same numbers, the same things are repeated time and time again in these cultures that we are told have no connection, they were all, and I can prove that they were all operating from the same superior knowledge base, because they were all telling you the same thing hidden in their stone, in their scriptures, in their writings.
Our genetic potential.
Our genetic, how we can return to our higher genetic potential. And that is what they're telling us. They're leaving us the key through genetic transmutation, through sound, through ancient knowledge, through certain rituals and practices, how to re-achieve that God state.
Right. Wow. And when you say practices, is I do like a qigong meditation every day, like stuff like that, like energy cultivation practice, where you could spiritualize the body, move the sacred energy up and down, you know, all that good stuff. And so, Mr. Field, do you know about the demiurge? That story, you know, what is the what is the demiurge? What do you know about that?
When we start looking at floods and things like that, we are talking about the flood of consciousness that yeah, after certain rituals, certain practices, that there is a flood of consciousness that sweeps through the body, and that is really the esoteric flood that is talking about. When you start looking again, Noah, what is Noah? Noah is the child in the womb, which is basically through the Holy Grail, which is the womb, through the menstrual blood, which is the red wine. It gives us the product of the cup, which is the child. Right. Now, when you start looking at the animals went in 2 by 2, there are genealogists that call the base pairs of DNA, going back to that subject again, DNA, the base pairs of DNA are known as the chromosomes of Noah's Ark, because they exist as base pairs, which is 2 by 2. It's talking about DNA. When you start looking at the Ark, you're looking at arcane knowledge. Arcane knowledge is secret knowledge that is given to only the select few people. So it goes back to the exact same story. Every single thing that I've read in the Bible, every story, every religious book in the world, if you want to Muhammad, if you want to Allah, if you want to do Yahweh, if you want to do Jehovah, if you want to do Jesus, they're all the same character of a different name. It's telling you of enlightenment consciousness. It's telling you the road to consciousness. I mean, do people realize that the Roswell crash of New Mexico is related to the Mayan 2012 prophecy? It is related to Jesus Christ through the number 33, through the 33rd parallel. It's all related. Now, I don't know what happened at Roswell, but what did happen was a deliberate location. And I can prove it was a deliberate location by where it happened. It happened on the 33rd parallel. It happened on the same parallel that Mount Hermon, Mount Zion, where Jesus became illuminated. That was on the 33rd parallel. The 33rd parallel is significant in many ways. The number 33 is significant in many ways. Jesus dies age 33 on the cross.
Yeah.
You have Jacob's ladder, which is the highway to enlightenment, which is the spine, which has 33 vertebrae. The 33rd mention of Jacob in the Bible mentions Jacob's ladder, which is the spine, which has 33 vertebrae. The 33rd vertebrae is known as Atlas. Atlantis means the island of Atlas. Atlantis is your pineal gland. Because Plato was the first person in history to mention Atlantis. And he describes Atlantis as the island that rules 7. So what does that mean? The pineal gland is in between the 2 hemispheres of the brain, surrounded by the cerebrospinal fluid. It is an island. It is the master gland. It is the island that rules the 7 islands, the 7 chakras. It is the master gland. It is the spiritual site. That is Atlantis, which it sits upon. When you see the likes of the Rockefeller Center and you have Atlas holding up the world, that is really the 33rd vertebrae holding up the place of consciousness, which is the mind.
Oh, okay.
And the reactivation of Atlantean crystals between the pituitary gland and the pineal gland, there is a region known as the crystal palace. It is a crystalline region of the brain. That is the reactivation of the Atlantean and Lemurian crystals, because Lemuria is the pituitary gland and Atlantis is the pineal gland. It's the merging of the 2 lands. So even Atlantis, even King Arthur, the King Arthur legend, when only King Arthur could remove Excalibur, the sword, from the stone. Well, what is that telling you? Excalibur comes from ex caus libertarius, liberated from the stone is what it means. The stone is the wisdom stone, the philosopher's stone. Why the sword? Sword is symbolic of knowledge.
Oh, okay.
Only the chosen can extract the knowledge from the stone of wisdom. It's the same story time and time again.
It's like an encrypted code or game that we're in.
Yeah.
It's like it has different labels, maybe different cultures, but it seems like we're in this matrix, or it's like a cosmic game, you know, and the code is just all internal. And you realize too that living in this realm, it always like kind of forces you to move, to think emotionally, to always like constantly be thinking. It's like it's difficult to just stay still, to stay calm, you know. And then lust, sex is everywhere in the songs and the movies and you know, the porn industries out there. So it's like everything just kind of gears us towards, like you said, a satanic consciousness. And are there beings that benefit from us staying in this consciousness? Are there really like the Archon story, right? Are there really like parasitic beings that kind of siphon off the collective humanity as cattle?
What people need to realize is this world is run by the mafia, and I don't mean the mafia as in Al Capone. I mean a mafia that through every conceivable piece of reality, through food, through water, through technology, through the media, through the news, through the sexuality of the pop industry and the film industry, every single aspect of our reality is deliberate to keep our vibrations low. And when you look at the great scientists like Nikola Tesla, like Einstein and others, they tell you that the universe is really a frequency, it is a vibration. The very word universe means one verse, and a verse is a metrical rhythm. It's mathematics and sound. Now, for those who understand that the human body is a frequency, when you start putting GMO food, etc., in the body, those GMO foods have zero vibration. They have no compatibility with an organic vibrating body. It is basically attacking you from within. When you have sun-grown vegetables, organic vegetables, etc., they have a high vibration. It's condensed light. Now, your body is condensed light. It is a compatible frequency of nourishable food. When you start eating food of zero vibration, it is killing you. Right. Every aspect of your life is geared to keep the human soul down in captivity. Now, a lot of people say, you know, why is there such an interest in Earth? Why is there such activity in our skies? And when you start looking, the universal makeup is a trinity. It is either a positive, a negative, or a neutral. That is the atomic and the subatomic and the even smaller atomic world. That is the universal makeup, the three: positive, negative, neutral. So everything within that will fall into those categories. You'll either be negative, you'll either be positive, or you'll either be neutral. Now, the positive visitors that are trying to help us, I was once told in a channeled message that, and I quote, "We are not here to rescue you, we are here to help you to rescue yourselves."
Right, absolutely.
That is what I was told. Now, how they're doing that, again, when you look into quantum mechanics and science, you come across, or I've come across, something that is known as a spontaneous self-organization. Now, what that simply means is when two frequencies meet, a lower and a higher frequency, initially they will vibrate at their original frequency. But at some point of that communion, the lower frequency will jump to match the higher frequency. In other words, it has lifted itself to a higher vibration. That is spontaneous self-organization. When we are introduced to higher frequencies, our lower frequency will skip to match the higher frequency. It is the way it is. It is one of those universal laws. This will happen. So they are trying to introduce a higher vibration in order for that spontaneous self-organization to lift. They are trying to lift us to a higher vibration. Once we are lifted to a higher vibration, all these archons, all of these low vibrations can't touch you. They can only touch you when you are low enough for them to reach.
Right.
And everything is geared through fight or flight to keep you at a low ebb. People living from paycheck to paycheck, people seeing negative news, people struggling to survive, to live with the cost of living. It's all manufactured to keep you low.
Right. Yeah, and that's why they say, like, the life here is not life per se, it's manufactured life. It's been engineered this way. And, you know, and
It
it's
is.
like how you see, you know, the amount of kids that go missing per year, like it's, you know, it's an underground industry. And what is the significance, Mr. Feely, with adrenochrome? Because you start to realize that a lot of these Satanists are addicted to the adrenochrome of these kids. And from my understanding, it almost seems like a hyperdimensional crack to these particular entities that kind of feed on it. You know, is the industry, the underground child trafficking and woman trafficking industry, is it almost like human beings are being like sold off or you know, used as a, what's the word, like how we sell meat, packaged meat and stuff like that? Is it, do these beings see you, do they see us as a product?
There are certain underground rituals that take place, and they happen at royal buildings, royal palaces, below government buildings. They're in places that the public don't know about. When you start looking again scientifically, it's proven that the blood of children regenerate old age. So it's almost a regeneration of self. And of course, they understand that everything has an energy. Now the energy of children is pure energy, and they use this as a food for many ritualistic reasons, and one of them is the regeneration of self. But it is purely a ritual food. It is purely a ritual feeding.
Right, that's what it
Now,
seems.
because their mindset, their reality, they don't live by the same standards that decent people live by. It is completely different, and some of the things that go on, you know, and some of it comes to light. But of course, you know, when you get key witnesses, all of a sudden they commit suicide, of course, and you know it never gets to court. All these witnesses never get called to give evidence. There's this network of self-protection that the establishment, that the system protects itself, and it protects certain individuals. Now these individuals are put into certain positions because, for one, they're blackmailable, that they have a history where it would destroy them if these things come out. So of course that is always the incentive to do what they're told. And we have a world really that is beyond most people's imagination of what really happens.
Yes.
Because they cannot contemplate and they cannot believe that their leaders, that the people that they elect into government, who they believe is actually running the show, they're not running the show, they're just figureheads. But they cannot believe some of the things that you say about the activities that these people are involved in, and the brotherhoods and the fraternities that these people are involved in. And if they were to realise that, then the world would change overnight. But of course, it's a difficult concept to believe. It really is.
You know, and you see how Google kind of cleaned up the whole Pizzagate thing. You know, Google been cleaning up their search engines, even like good protocols out for healing. You see the pharmaceutical industry, which also wants to keep us at that low vibration. You see, they it's like like you said, everything is interconnected too with them in trying to, you know, even look at alcohol, how alcohol is like this big, widespread thing. Like, oh, I go into the club, let me go take a shot, let me go do this and that, you know, and then smoking weed probably ain't like, you know, the original weed, right? So it's like, it's everywhere. From you step out your door, it's just a part of, it's so entrained in us. It's like we almost don't know how it feels to live without this mafia, because they took over the education system is just an indoctrination camp, you know? And the real education, like from what you talking about, a lot of us go well into old age and don't even understand sex or sexual energy, sexual alchemy, don't even understand our potential. We just so caught up in the circumstances in life. We don't even think that there's a civilization on Mars. There's so many things that's, you know, going on. And it's like to just kind of look at all the potential that we have within ourselves. If we could meditate and sit still, you know, you would feel cosmic energy. Because when I meditate, I do feel the cosmic energy coming into me, the tingling in the hands and the face, the pineal going, you know, and it's like I feel so energized when I keep still, and I could feel almost this vibrational frequency of, you know, as it lifts and it lifts. And then I'll, you know, and then it's also a struggle too, because your family, everyone's addicted. We all addicted to something to some degree. We grow up as legitimate drug addicts, you see. So one thing that one of my elders told me, he said, addiction circumvents intelligence. So it seems like they don't really care what religion you choose, or even if it's sports, if you want to play Xbox, even if you just want to read all day, if you don't really apply, put certain things into application, once you stay at that low frequency, they could kind of direct your life. They could come after you, you know what I mean? Unless, again, before you put yourself out there, you build yourself energetically, you know? So that's a thing too, you know? All of this is fascinating, you know, what you're talking about, Mr. Feely. And, you know, especially, you know, how you kind of came face to face with an extraterrestrial, and not just that, you saw things every day. Do you live out in the wilderness or something? In the middle?
No, I live in I live in a city, and also it is.
Wow.
So
Your neighbors see?
No, and then these things are above us, you know. And going back to what you said about cigarettes and alcohol, and that is the true meaning of thou shalt not kill. So in other words, thou shalt not kill your spirituality by these toxins, and that is really what it's telling you not to do. Really, so that thou shalt not kill your own spirituality. Now, one of the I've had many sort of equations mathematically in what you would deem as a dream state, and it's sort of connected to what you were saying just about your meditation and whatever. But one of them was when I was simply given a mathematical symbol, which turned out to be the symbol of the square root, and I was just given the numbers 397. Now, it took me the whole of the next day to work out what that meant, the square root of 397. And again, in a very, very compact nutshell, it takes you back to the mystery schools of Egypt, and it has connections to the bumblebee and the honeycomb. And the bumblebee is the symbol of Egyptian royalty and also the Merovingian bloodline. When you look into the bumblebee, you start to see that many of the ancient practices involved breath techniques. Now, spirituality comes from spiritus, which means breath. So spirituality is the art of breathing, and that is why the Sphinx has no nose. It's telling you that we've lost the art of breathing. It's a deliberate message. Now, when you start looking at the ancient practices of breathing and clearing the mind, so biblically, the in is full, the mind is full. How do you clear the mind? You clear it through meditation. Now some of the ancient practices involve what is known as the Brahma Mari, which means bumblebee. And they were using this technique that sounded like the hum of the bumblebee to clear their vessel, to clear their mind in meditation. It goes again into consciousness and having a clear mind in order to allow these things to come in. And again, you know, it's all to do with the breath technique, and it's the same breath technique that raises that cerebrospinal fluid as well from the sacral chakra to the brain and back, which creates the torus electromagnetic field of consciousness. It's all connected to this higher type of human, this higher type of vessel, and realizing that we are really supernatural beings. And when we reach our full capacity, we are limitless, we are untouchable. And that is why they must stop us from reconnecting to that limitless supernatural potential, because then they've lost us, we've gone.
Right. That's why they spray in the skies. That's why they doing all that extra stuff, you know. And
yeah.
Have you ever heard of it's an exercise that I do. It's called embryonic breathing. I don't know if you heard. It's dealing with qigong, where you breathe in, you breathe into the belly, and you contract the PC muscle. You know, it's like when you when you want to pee, you could hold in the PC muscle. You know, when you breathe in, you could contract it, push it down. When you exhale out, your stomach sucks in, and then you kind of push it up. And when I do that, I do feel the tingling right here on my pineal and the pulsation. It took me some time to practice it, but it isn't like an internal alchemy that takes place. And literally it's almost like like I meditate like for usually 30 minutes to an hour in sunlight and in darkness, and I'm realizing it. I've only been doing it for about 8 months now, and things are starting to almost like I'm just magnetizing things to me. It's like I'm not physically, like back in the day, like, okay, let me go work. I gotta get a job, I gotta go do this. And I more was inclined to only knowing how to use my physical body. Because I think like they kind of could control that to an extent, but there's almost like there's other more subtle aspects of ourselves. When we know how to access it, it's like this world just becomes almost like a playground, you know? Like you start to realize that there's certain things you could pull to you, even from just breathing, even from just keeping them from mental fasting. Because, you know, physical fasting is much easier. But when you try to go on a mental fast, where when a thought comes in, you don't really want to dwell in it. And it really changes your entire life. And I'm starting to think like, I mean, like thinking in and of itself, the English language, you know, do you know, like, for example, like the English language, they say that that's like a low vibrational frequency language. Have you heard of that before? Or equivocal language that misleads you?
Yes, I mean, numbers are a frequency, as are letters, but when you look into the Kabbalah, when you look into Hebrew, the whole of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are really a vibrational alphabet. 22 is important because you have 22 bones of the skull, and that is the place of enlightenment, of course. So, again, it really depends on intention. Okay. You know, you have all of these letters. You have all, you have certain Freemasonry bits hidden within the English alphabet. You have all of these different things encoded within the alphabet. Numbers are quite important, but the kingdom of God is within you, as the Bible tells you, and that's telling you that everything that you need is inside you. And when you start to control your thoughts, and when you start to control your physical vessel, what were the Egyptians talking about with the use of their god Teote and the emerald tablets, and it's a metaphor. Teote is a metaphor for thought, because a thought is the highest level of that secret fire. When you can control your thoughts, your teote, then you are becoming that higher type of
mind
being.
Mastery.
Because mind mastery, because then the mind can control you. You know, the mind speaks to every single cell of your body. Every single cell of your body that you have now is not the cells that you were born with. You know, 99.999% of your cells are empty space. We are a 3 billion letter code. You know, if it wasn't for atomic balance universally, we wouldn't exist. You know, all of these things. We are the creation of perfect balance, and it is that perfect balance which is the ancient principle of self-mastery. It's not like the New Age tells you must only concentrate on the light and forget the dark. In the universe, there is what is known as parity. What you class as negative and positive were created in equal amounts. It's not a case of disregarding your 50% in favour of the other 50%, because that is a lack of balance. The mastery is to master everything. Your light, your dark, your negative, your positive. Master them, unify them. That is self-mastery. It is not, I must concentrate on this and not that, because that is creating a lack of balance within. That lack of equilibrium, you will not master yourself. It is the Magdalene, it is the Christ. Mary Magdalene is 153. She's the Vesica Piscis. You know, it is not a real character. 153 is the number of ancient knowledge, and 153 is written in the Bible. It's written in the pyramids. It's written everywhere. I mean, 153 also gives you 1 + 5 + 3 is 9, which is the number of completion, the 9 pyramids of Egypt. Now, how is 153 important? Inside the Vesica Piscis, the two interlinked rings, it has a ratio of 153. Mary Magdalene in the Greek language in Demetria equals 153. Okay, so it's telling us about the vessel of God, which is the yoni, which then comes into the Holy Grail, the womb, the blood of life, the royal line. Now, in the Bible, when Christ was resurrected, he went with the apostles and they caught 153 fish, which is quite a random number, isn't it? 153 fish. That is telling you something. When you go to the Great Pyramid of Egypt, the entrance is on the 17th course level. Now, what that means is, hidden code, 17 levels up is the entrance. If you add the numbers from 1 to 17, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, all the way to 17, it equals 153. When you go inside the Grand Gallery, it is 153 feet long. There are 153 steps. So they are encoding through mathematics this ancient knowledge of self, the number of completion, the number of sacred knowledge.
And 153, you say, is the number.
153. It's the number. It's the number of sacred knowledge. 153, which also gives you the number 9, which is the number of esoteric man, the number of completion, which is the 9 stages. The 9 stages of alchemy, the 9 pyramids of Egypt, the number 10, the 10 commandments, the 9 stages of alchemy, plus a Zoth, which is the activation of your Krestos, your fire. The number 10 is harmony within matter. That is why there are 10 commandments. That is why, etc., etc.
Yeah.
It's telling you about yourself, but they're hiding it in code.
Amazing.
It's all about the self and your potential, potential. What people don't realize is you are God, you are Jesus, you are Moses, you are all of these characters. They don't exist. They are you. They are me. They are everyone who's listening to this program, and everybody who's ever existed in this earth and ever will exist are the biblical characters that they worship. They don't exist. They're metaphors for you.
And it's just to understand self, study self. And okay, so Mr. Feely, the crop circles, are they also like some type of DNA triggers, like the geometrical patterns, like for you to like have a subconscious memory that like awakens? Is that like with the crop?
Well, I've been inside crop circles. I've seen live footage of plasma balls creating crop circles. Now, those plasma balls have been recorded as having an intelligent conversation, and I'll get to plasma balls and orbs in a moment. But what people don't realize is what they believe to be a crop circle. The circle is not a circle, it's an oval. Okay, so the importance of that is going back to Teote, going back to fort. The geometric shape of fort is an oval. That is why crop circles are ovals and not circles. Now, the reason I mention that is we have a thing in the brain called a vacuum domain, vacuum domains, which are basically miniature wormholes of space, black holes of space, which are, so that the black holes of the brain, the vacuum domains, are connected to the gigantic universal wormholes and black holes of space, and they are a relay system between each other. Now, when people...
The cosmos.
The cosmos, the brain. Now, when you look at the universe and you look at a picture of the neurons of the brain, they are an exact replica. So we are a miniature universe in many ways. Now, when people get together, it's almost part of a type 1 civilization, a group consciousness. They can create, or their focused group consciousness can create self-radiant balls of light, which are vacuum domains. They are basically balls of light. Those are the balls of light that I've seen creating crop circles. It is the power of thought. Now, when people get together, they create these vacuum domains, these self-radiant balls of light. If we are creating them, whose mind are creating the patterns of crop circles? Going further than that, I have the sound the crop circles make, and they make a geometric sound. Now, within that sound, there is a message. There is a message that is being conveyed in the sound waves of that geometric shape. And that is why there are different, the same with the Nazca lines, they have encoded sound. Each geometric shape will create a unique sound. And within that sound, there are messages. In the crop circles, they are known as diatonic ratios. Now, diatonic ratios are not a natural sound, but they contain sound in them. The likes of famous composers, Mozart and Bach, they used to encrypt in their symphonies messages back to their families that were carried in the sound waves, and they were interpreted because their families knew how to interpret and remove that language. That is what the geometric shapes of the crop circles and the Nazca lines are. They are encrypted sound messages, and I have those sound messages at home. And if you are able to interpret that sound and extract that sound as a language, you will get a message.
You get a higher
message. Now, bear in mind again that human languages, the languages that we speak, are reflections of inherent DNA. So it's really what we're speaking now is our genetic language. That is why there are so many different languages of Earth, because there are so many different cross sections of DNA. There are many races on Earth because we have different cross sections of DNA.
Hybrids.
And it's all to do with genetics and genetic mixes. It's been programmed outside of Earth with messages. Japanese scientists in 2007 encrypted a message in the bacteria of human DNA. That message read E equals mc squared in the year 1905. Now that message went from generation to generation to generation as a genetic message that human beings have implanted into genetics. Inside neutrinos, which are subatomic particles, which some people believe are responsible for the dark matter of space, but neutrinos, which are shape-shifting particles, scientists encrypted a message that said neutrino inside neutrinos. Now, if human scientists can put messages into human DNA, what can advanced scientists do?
Yeah.
There are encoded messages. Now, bear in mind that what we are told is dormant junk DNA is not. Junk DNA controls gene expression. Gene expression is the way that genetics works. Then we have RNA, which then passes on information to DNA. That information is then passed through your double helix of DNA. That message is then interpreted by a spherical bacteria called ribosomes. Inside us, we have this genetic communication going on that we're not even aware of, because our genetics are not us. They're from elsewhere.
Right.
Now, each of our genetics, each of our protons, each of our neutrons, each of our photons, each of our electrons store the information of all the other protons and electrons and neutrons in the universe. So all around us, we have this quantum data system that some people call the Akashic records, where we have access to universal knowledge, to universal information that is forever all around us. So space is not empty. Space is teeming with life. Space is teeming with information that we have access to.
Right. And is it like do you believe that the Earth is flat with a dome?
No. The dome is symbolic of the connection to the higher realms, the connection to God through water, and that then brings you to the principle of baptism and the fish of the sea, which are basically those who come into the alchemical sacred knowledge through the activation of their water, through the water of their DNA. That is really the baptism of the awakened, the fish of the sea, as the Bible calls it. So the dome is telling you of the connection between the Shatmahim, the heavenly waters, and the Mahim, the waters of earth. It is the connection, the conduit between man and God. That is the firmament. That is the dome of the Bible.
Okay.
All life that is ever known, ever been known, is a sphere, is spherical. So are the planets.
Right.
So are the atoms that mimic the planets. So is everything that we know, everything that lives is spherical. Even sounds that humans hear is aspherical. It's a sphere. So why would just one planet of all of the planets, now planets are there to sustain a higher form of life. I'm not convinced by the scientific arguments for flat Earth or the globe, to be perfectly fair. But when you start looking at the geometry of the universe and how everything begins as a sphere and then multiplies, originally it was a monopole that then separated it into a dipole, into a polarity, into duality. But everything is a sphere. Geometry, the creation, the infinity is a sphere. So why would just one planet not be a sphere? It makes no sense. Now, a two-dimensional flat becomes a three-dimensional sphere. Now, the universe, our reality is three-dimensional. So is everything within it. And a flat Earth would be a two-dimension, not three-dimension. So it makes no sense based on geometry, based on the design and the blueprints of life, that one planet out of all of these planets should be flat. It makes no sense whatsoever.
No,
it just doesn't.
Right. Wow. All I can say is, Mr. Feely, you definitely boy, you got a lifetime wealth of knowledge. Like, definitely, because it's like everything that you broke down, and everything just kind of points right back to me. Like, it's almost like I'm just looking at something and it's just a mirror of go within, do the intro or retrospection. And I feel like we could get so caught up, and it seems like that, like how the secret societies encrypted the books. We could get so caught up in the characters or in the personification of these principles that, and then we argue about it. So it's the worst part is we actually argue about it. We get in our emotions. And once again, once we get in our emotions and we get to that lower place, we really miss the message. And we argue about who is the messenger and stuff like that. So, oh man, Mr. Feely is there. I mean, I feel like you covered a lot. Is it, where can, if for the listeners, where can your books be purchased? From your website? Can it be purchased on Amazon?
Well, both really. The website www.michael-feely.com or Amazon. Different book places. I mean, certainly on the website, there's lots and lots of free blogs, free newsletters. There's all kind of things where I cover this kind of information. It gives all the events that I'll be going to. Just next week, I'm coming back to America. Come to America to do a 4-day conference in San Francisco, etc. So it sort of details everything that's sort of going on in my life at the moment. So probably the website is the best place to go for all of this sort of in-depth information.
Okay, I definitely will be ordering some of your books. Much respect, Elder, that I even could share this time with you. I really, this is really to me like a sacred exchange, because you really cleared up, and a lot intuitively I knew, but you cleared up so many things. Even the explanation about the crop circles, about certain things, you don't really hear that, nowhere else too much, and a lot of people just are very dismissive about stuff like that, like it doesn't happen, So, Mr. Feely, I just want to say thank you for your time. And how much do you have an event list on your website, right? Like, I guess you know which upcoming events we can go to.
Yeah, there's a slideshow that brings all the events up that obviously gets added to quite regularly. So at the moment there's probably about 4 or 5 things that somebody will be close to, regardless of where they are. There'll be something there.
So I'm going to be in Florida. Are you going to be like in Florida anywhere like this year?
I don't know yet. I'm certainly in San Francisco, but there's things that come out all the time, so it's always being updated. I do know that my gut feeling is I'll be coming back to the States not in the not too distant future, but as I say, next week I'm coming there anyway.
Okay, to San Francisco.
It's such a big country that to me, somebody said, "Oh, I'm just around the corner from you, man. It's 6 hours away." Now in the UK, 6 hours is literally, half the length of the country.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
And to someone that's just a local journey, 6 hours to come see me to talk, and that sort of blows the mind a little bit, really, how big the States is.
Okay, and I think that this interaction that me and you had, this is the most quiet I've been because it's like I just wanted to let it flow, because it's so rich in understanding. It's so, and to the listeners out there, everything is just about you. And everything is about your choices, your day-to-day choice. You either, and you can't serve two masters, you know? So the day-to-day choice, either in a spiritual practice, or you could fuel the underworld, right? Keep it trapped down there in the lower chakras. But you know, it just seems like the more we do, the more we think, the more we eat, the more we have sex. It's like the more we do the things we train to do, it kind of keeps us trapped at that lower vibration. And the less we think, the less we do when, you know, we get in a fasting state, you get more clarity of thought, and you probably could get your mind to a place where you're even more susceptible to this type of knowledge that Mr. Feely really giving out to the world. So hats off to you, Elder. You're really doing some good work, you know, and you know, I hope this ain't a farewell. I'd love to meet you one day.
He will happen.
It will happen. Okay.
It will happen.
That's good, man. So I hope you could be in Florida sometime, or even if you're in Atlanta, I'll drive up there, you know. But anyway, family, this is the Alkalise to Realize talk show. It's a beautiful exchange. You know, like I say, it's a wealth of knowledge. Order the man's books. I'm gonna, Mr. Feely, within this month or next month, I'm gonna look in your portfolio, but I definitely want to add some of your books to my library. You see, definitely like to get, because there's only so much you could talk about, you know. I'm sure that you really went more in depth. But anyway, thank you. You have a good day, brother. You know, and
Thank you.
Much love, family.
We alkalize to realize the body is the temple, water is the source of life. We breathe in life and then we synthesize. This liquid sun will free your glands and begin to decalcify. Peer through your third eye, see through the lies and give your body what it's missing. We dehydrated, and that's the human condition. But when you clean the body and leave the body, you set yourself up to receive the body. See, it's a sharp knife, that's the water of life. It's like a sword cutting parasites down the sides. It takes a certain kind of faith to know that you're divine. And if it comes from urethra, then it's alkaline. We serve in truth, and it don't matter how weird it really gets. It's the linchpin ascended masters to initiates. We alkalize to realize. Open your mind and find you had it inside this whole damn time. We alkalize to realize. Open your mind and find you had it inside this whole damn time. You had it inside this whole damn time.